Hey guys, welcome to another episode from the Engage podcast where I'm with Tom and Marco this time. Marco joining me as a co-host, and Tom, he's going to be talking to us about RAG and SEO essentially. So, how you doing, Tom?
Yeah, good man. Thanks for having me on.
Good,
Beautiful day
thank you, man.
outside.
It's a pleasure
Yeah,
to
love
have
it.
you on. And how are you doing, Marco?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I actually brought my friend to the show this time.
Oh, nice.
He's a Dachshund or Doxy or whatever you call him. It's a wiener dog. But if he is not sitting on my lap, he's gonna bark. So it's a trade-off.
So he's got to be there. Is he going to join in?
He's gonna join in.
He's going to join in as well. Perfect, perfect. So, Tom, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in tech and how it's actually led you to your current role now?
Yeah, so I started off as a data scientist, so modeling, predictions, that kind of stuff. And then right about 2022, 2023, ChatGPT explosion, and all the stuff I've done on sort of image recognition and sort of BERT and deep learning, all of a sudden became a lot more relevant. And I got involved in like software engineering, and that evolved into this new term which confuses everyone. It's called AI engineering, essentially. So it's to do with like RAG, agents, deploying models, specifically large language models a lot of the time. So yeah, that's me.
Cool. May I ask a question? Sorry, Callum. How old are you?
24.
24. Brilliant. So that's where the future is. Yeah.
And how long have you been learning about AI then?
It must be like close to 5 years, more or less,
5
depending
years.
on what you define it as. But tech in general, that's about
Yeah.
right.
Tech in general. Nice, man. Nice. And so, what initially drew you to working in AI and specifically large language models then?
Hype.
hype,
I saw
yeah.
it somewhere. I saw the potential. And for the last 2-3 years, it's non-stop in your feed every day, everywhere. So it's just a logical thing for me is to apply myself in this industry.
And you mentioned the topic of RAG in our initial call. Could you potentially talk to me a little bit more about what RAG actually is? Because someone like me, who doesn't really have a tech background, Marco probably does know a little bit about RAG, or probably a lot about RAG. But for the general viewer, could you just explain to me what it is?
Yeah, sure. So RAG's been around for 2 or so years, and it is the thing that people talk about when they talk about AI and enterprise. So RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is in very plain English. If you have, let's say, 100 documents, instead of manually going through each of them and trying to retrieve that information, you hook up an LLM to it, and it only fetches the relevant bits using what's called cosine similarity, which means only the most semantically relevant information. And there's also other techniques that have evolved since. So compared to, let's say, agents, I think it's quite a developed product now. There's lots of startups who offer it as a service and as a product. And, it's integrated into Azure, GCP, and all the big cloud providers. They offer that. So yeah, from my experience, that's what people mostly talk about when they talk about AI in enterprise.
Could you talk us through the architecture of a RAG application? So
Yeah,
what are the
sure.
components, the constituents?
Most of the time, you'll be using something called a vector database, which is converting language, as we know it, into a numerical representation, into language of AI, essentially. And what you're trying to do is find numbers which are similar to each other and only retrieve the relevant bits of information. Let's say if you're looking at, I don't know, War and Peace, which is like a couple of million words in it, you only want to find the correct chapter or information relevant to this certain character, which really helps with accuracy. As we know, AIs hallucinate quite a lot, actually. So if you only retrieve the necessary information, you dramatically improve the accuracy. And there's multiple stages to it. The actually fetching of the chunks, and the synthesizing of information later.
So, and how does a RAG handle things like metadata? So, for instance, page numbers, the context of a certain word that you're looking for. Or how does it handle that? Or do you need a different technology for that?
Usually it's done separately. You get like a metadata store where a certain information about a document will be stored. For example, if it's a PDF from a certain company, you'll put the date, the name, the people it's relevant to, the business function that it belongs to. That really helps improve results. But there's like dozens of techniques now to get that accuracy from, let's say, 85 to 99% essentially, which is why enterprise are adopting it, I think. It's because it does actually provide certain reliability. You can be sure that RAG does retrieve the correct information 98-99% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned before in our previous school again that you're working with AI web agents now. So how did RAG lead you to working with web agents then?
You could think of as RAG as a tool essentially that an LLM can access to. So instead of having just a RAG chatbot, which you have 100 documents, the bot only has access to those 100 documents. RAG is just one of the tools that is available to an agent, and we could define agent as most of the times, an LLM which has access to an environment, and it can take actions in that environment, such as reading your email, sending an email, updating your calendar, which can be quite useful actually, and browsing the web. So when it comes to actually browsing the web, the agent would, let's say, given it a certain task, let's say, I don't know, research GPU deals around me in UK. A good example of this that everyday listeners could use even today is ChatGPT Agent, which bridges the gap between sort of deep research and operator and allows for sort of interpretability of what your actual task is. Yeah, so that's what an agent is, and on the web just means it'll go out and browse certain websites, compile information, and come back to you with a result such as, here you go, here are the top 10 deals, here are the prices, it adheres to your requirements that you give it.
So question, Tom. I usually have to explain to people what is an agent, an AI agent, or web agent as you call it, and what is not. So do you think that ChatGPT with its web function, the operator function, where it just goes out and does stuff for you, would you consider that to be an AI agent as you described earlier?
I'm not a purist. Okay. Anything that's, if it can impact sort of the environment around it, it has a tool that it can call. I would consider function calling an agent. So not a purist in that sense.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, the purist would say an agent is a independent piece of agentic architecture, right? Where it does the planning all by itself, chooses the agents it wants to work with, the tools it is required to use. The purist would say that, but you're obviously the more pragmatic person, which is great, right? So yeah, if it looks like an agent and smells like an agent, it's probably an agent. So maybe a follow-up question is, what I'm seeing is that organizations are adapting agentic technology, but also customers, end users like us. And before we go down the route of the organizations, maybe talk a little bit about how customers like us, users like us, use agentic technology or will use that technology and what it will look like in the future.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, people with the right sort of subscription can go to ChatGPT today, spin up an agent, give it a task, And you can see in action its sort of thinking tokens, how it dissects a task, how it browses websites, explains what it can access, what it can't access. For example, it still adheres to certain restrictions on websites, which hopefully we can touch upon later. But for example, there's also startups. That a friend of mine works at a startup called Gadabout, and what they do is web agents for the purposes of marketing, so discoverability online. So how well does your brand appear in a search? So let's say if you are a retailer, right, you really should start considering whether your product or your service shows up in a ChatGPT result if somebody searches for it. So for example, like my friend Jan, he is sort of investigating this area and provides sort of reports on how well is your product discoverable. Yeah, it's sort of like SEO, but AI agentic. It's quite new still,
Yeah.
but it's an emerging trend, I would say.
Yeah.
How well is your product discoverable?
Oh, that's
I
all.
was doing some research actually just the other day on e-commerce, and in fact, I think it was 67% of the sample that they used was actually using Google for search for SEO, and 8% were using GPTs. Do you think that number's just going to skyrocket within the next couple of years, say?
100%. Google Chrome is already losing market share, and it will continue, especially as people expect that ease of use when it comes to getting an instant answer from ChatGPT. They expect the same thing to be also usable for their products and services they are searching for. Why waste your time on Google when you can just get an instant answer?
Yeah. So what you also see is there's a new category of browsers coming, right? So the agentic browsers. And correct me if I'm going off in a totally different direction, Callum, because because the agentic browsers have they're geared towards agentic search. And you're right. So the number of searches in Google are declining fast, and people are trusting, for some reason or another, these LLMs more. But there's a whole new category of browsers coming, and have you been able to play with a few of them? There have been a few announced. I myself have not seen any of them. So I wonder if you had the chance to play with one of them.
No, I know OpenAI is going to be releasing one. That's going to be the end of the world event for everyone. But not just yet. I understand the limitations of the technology, so I'm quite skeptical about jumping into it right now. So I know there's certain websites agents can't go to, there's certain limitations, so I would rather do it myself.
Yeah. So basically, if you look at the, I'm sorry, Callum. So if you look at the way forward for agentic AI on the customer side, the client side, so we will have AI agents representing us, and we will have agentic browsers that we can work with. And what will those agents that represent us, what will they be able to do you think?
Here's a moment to think about it for the listeners and for each of us. What is the limit, really? And what shape or form can it take? The way I imagine it is in 2-3 years, it's no longer you go on Deliveroo or Just Eat or whatever to order your food. You instead type it out, describe what you want, and then you just need to scan your face, show your fingerprint for the payment, and then it comes half an hour later or an hour later. That's an example that everyone can relate, everyone will be able to use. But that's not limited to it. People always use the booking plane tickets example. I can imagine that. Book me plane tickets, book me a hotel, research what to do, compare all the options, and present it to me.
Would you trust a payment done through an agentic AI with hallucination and all? Would you trust it at this point in time?
I'll make a counterpoint. There's a great comment I saw somewhere. Would you trust a plane that was built by an AI system? Would you trust a pilot which was an AI system?
I know that Heathrow is implementing an AI system as we
Yeah,
speak, so I'm not sure. I think I don't.
exactly.
I
I'm
think I
also
don't.
there.
I don't either. I don't either
Yeah.
at all. But
Exactly.
here's a question for you, Tom. What can Google now do to potentially gain back that market share already? They haven't lost too much market share right now, but the potential that you're talking about is, well, it's quite big.
Good question. I would say they're quite up with it in terms of implementing AI into search. So, for example, it's now mandatory. I'm not sure if you can opt out of it, but when you search on Google, you get a little summary thing, which
Yeah.
sometimes produces questionable results. Yeah. And I think they're developing the next version of that, or the next step, which I haven't yet the chance to check it out. But yeah, they're thinking in the right sort of way in terms of with their Gemini models, which have access to the web, you can do the same thing that other models can do. But it's a tough one. They still need to beat all the regulatory stuff first.
Yeah, of
Question:
course.
Are you searching? Are you using Google still over, like, say, ChatGPT or Perplexity, maybe? So, what are you using most?
AI search.
AI
No,
search.
it's not even a. I was just comparing the amount I do. No, of course.
Maybe I'm a
Um,
bit too old school then. I've actually dumped Google altogether for Kagi because I'm fed up with the marketing bullshit and the ads everywhere. But I must say that I really do not trust the results of the AI. Although I'm using Manus, which has a fact checking option, but I don't want to use the fact checking every time I go for a search, right? But I haven't tried Perplexity though. So what are you using as your search tool?
Perplexity is quite good. I like to use a mix of. Again, it depends on the task. I would say ChatGPT sort of web search for the most basic idea generation, and then if I want to go deeper, I would use something like deep research. If I want to gather a topic into a concise summary. But Perplexity is very good in terms of providing sources, and Google offers a grounded option as well, which links it to the pages it fetches. But I know the limitations of most of these
Yeah.
systems. In the sense, they skip some websites. For example, OpenAI agent can't go on the Amazon site due to robots.txt, and because we're not in that space there yet where agents can go everywhere, do everything. Yeah.
Sure. So
Cool.
let's flip it then, Tom. We've spoken about the customer side. What about the business side? What are the biggest implications for businesses?
Yeah, so for businesses, it's now a very good time to start evaluating your AI search strategy. Like, how well do you appear? Even investing a bit of time, money, and effort into it could reap quite big rewards down the line. In the same way people had to invest their time in SEO and figure out how that works, it's now time to evaluate how well you appear on AI search. And there's a couple of factors which go into it.
With the risk of us drifting even further, Callum, one question that bugs me is, could you enlighten us a bit, give us a few simple tips on how to improve your site so that it appears better or higher, I don't know, in AI-based search engine, quote
Yeah,
unquote.
it's a bit of a black box because there's a couple of factors which go into it. But the ones I'm quite certain about is the general readability of your site. Think of it as the agent would come onto your site, scrape everything into one text blob, describe your site, and that's how well you'll be searchable, right? In the sense, the spacings, the descriptiveness of it would really help. Additionally, thinking about robots.txt and llm.txt, which are these files attached to every website, which either allow or disallow scrapers and agents going to your website and fetching information. If you prohibit agents from searching, they won't be able to access it in the first place. So it's a question of, what is your general strategy? Are you a big enough brand that you don't want agents to go through your website, and you simply rely on an LLM's sort of innate ability and knowledge of your brand, if you're big enough, like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, etc. Because otherwise, if you're a small enough brand, the LLM simply wasn't trained on your data. It doesn't know what your brand is. So so it's a trade-off, right? You get unwanted traffic, or you get sort of certain discoverability from agents.
I also heard that it may help if you do not write your pages for SEO, but you write more stories. Because that gives the AI the context that it needs to make it more interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not in that space. It's something I heard from a marketing person. But I was wondering if it has any truth to it.
I think so. It kind of comes to my first point, where you want it to be very clear in what the website is just from the text, without necessarily seeing the interface, the images, and having that context. It's just almost if someone is coming to your website for the first time, can they just get all the necessary information from the text on the homepage? Or do they need to do some digging and further research? It's still a very grey area. It's a very new industry, people figuring it out. And every time a new model gets released, all of that changes slightly, because different models, different knowledge embedded in them, can show up differently for your brand.
I was going to ask a very similar question to yours, Marco. I was going to ask how it affects content creation and whether marketers use AI more or less. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the use of AI on websites has actually downgraded particular companies in the SEO search. So would that mean that you're going to have to be using less of AI to create your content and more just off the top of your head, essentially?
Yeah, actually written a article about it called Vibe Marketing. A bit of an analogy to vibe coding, but that's a whole different story altogether. And because branding in the age of AI is going to be more helpful than ever to getting your message across, right?
Yeah.
And especially human written content, that will make a difference. Because so last year in October 24, I just written an article about it, which appeared today, I think. The internet was flooded with up to 57% AI slop, ranging from translations to pure AI generated content, music, videos, and the works. And Europol, for some reason, predicted that in 26, it will be 90% of the internet that is full of slop. And genuine content, human written content, which is not in the Gaussian curve, right? That slap dab in the middle. I don't know the American term for it. It's not in the middle, but it's more on the outskirts. It's like humanized content, real human content, and not the flavorless, bland AI content will make a difference. So I think marketers will be more important than ever in writing genuine stories and getting genuine customers to tell their stories, instead of this cheap ass, let's go to the AI and have it write stories from a website. But now they can get away with it, but I'm guessing in 26 they're not. So you need to stick your head above the grass.
Marco,
that's really interesting. Hopefully it means my job's secure as well as a marketer.
Marco, can we always rely on your blog to find human centric content?
No. So what I do is no. What I do is I generate a framework
Uh-huh.
for my blog, and I have it do research. So basically, the this week I had two blogs where I did a lot of research using SciSpace. And
Mm-hmm.
I fed the SciSpace news into SciSpace is an AI, right, for
Mm-hmm.
scientists. And I fed the results into Manus, which is
Mm-hmm.
my go-to AI replacing ChatGPT because it can do anything. And I had it create research papers, well, not research papers, but PowerPoint presentations, which I used for my article. And I use it to create the framework as well. But I believe in the augmentation speech, right? The augmentation idea. So it saves me time, but I still infuse it with my own thoughts, my own terminology. I've never heard an AI cuss as much as I do in my own blogs, right?
Yeah.
So that's not something you can ask it to do for you unless you go to an uncensored AI, which
Hmm.
I'm not. So it's and to me, it's a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I use a bit of both. It's a bit of me, it's a bit of the AI, but it creates genuinely unique stuff. Well, it's me saying it, but not
But
sure. Have
that's
you?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. I was going to say that exactly how AI should be used for content creation to enhance the human process, so that you can create more genuine content.
Well, that could be a contradictio in termini, right? More genuine content. If that would include more people, yes. But if it would mean more of the AI, then it would contradict the original purpose, I guess.
Yeah,
So, but that's the details. The devil is in the details.
it's more the formatting that the AI does, which
The
saves you time
formatting.
rather than the
The
actual.
formatting saves me a lot of time, indeed.
There you go.
So,
Yeah.
and the reason why is I started doing that because I didn't use any AI because I didn't want to at first. But since I'm a non-native English speaker, I found it very helpful, right? As everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the opportunity for it to create frameworks. And then I went, that's interesting. I get it.
Hmm.
I'm able to make it my own and still being supported by the AI. So if you're a lazy bastard and you let the AI do all the work, then you're going to be bland, right? So, and I
Mm-hmm.
can pick out any AI written article from afar, right? So, and I'm not talking about delve and the other words. I'm talking about real patterns that you can recognize, uh, the length of paragraphs,
Mm-hmm.
the grammar itself. So,
Hmm.
but using the AI to enhance you so that you can tell your story better, that can still make a difference, and it can get you there faster. So that's why I love human in the loop. So yeah,
Sure. So
but
get back on script then, because we just went on a bit of a tangent there, which is
sorry,
obviously great. But what advice would you actually give to companies looking to stay visible then, Tom? You've
Yeah, like I've
spoken
mentioned,
about it a little
yeah.
bit, but yeah.
Like I mentioned, I would say you need to have a certain strategy in place. Do you want this traffic on your website? Do you want that discoverability? And if you do, then you should be looking at robots.txt, alarm.txt. There's another one, the schema file that you can put on your website to help
Hmm.
the agent easier find the different parts of your website.
Hmm.
And once you take a decision, it could be that you allow these bots, and then it's about making sure that your website is understandable, is written in a clear manner. There's lots of text because that will be the primary way the bot will ingest information, and yeah, make it very easy for it to navigate. Dynamic content can sometimes confuse certain crawlers and agents, so it's a trade-off, right? You can be very fancy but you might lose some of the traffic.
So, as an example, I'm working on a project now for an organization that draws a lot of traffic
Hmm.
from AI bots, AI scrapers, and obviously you don't want that because it creates a higher latency. It's costly, in fact, because a bot is not a user, and it takes up energy, time, resources. Um, so And the case over there is that even though they had put in their robots and LLM.text that robots weren't allowed en masse to do it, they still found a huge number of crawlers doing that nonetheless. And so we're now looking into Cloudflare or tar pits, honeypots, but that's interesting and all. And it will block the bots, but you won't be able to be found through the AI chat. So that's a trade-off. What
Hmm.
would you do? I'm at a loss here. So what is the best option? Building tar pits so they drown, they themselves drown like a dinosaur in a tar pit, or just allow them to rummage and take up your valuable resources.
I would say whichever strategy they go for, they have to prepare for it. Like I don't know the context. Let's say if they do go with the allow all the bots on the site, um, maybe Cloudflare would allow to filter some of them out, or some kind of a meet halfway solution if it's possible. And if they do go that way, they should just be prepared for extra traffic. Perhaps it's a good opportunity to review their infrastructure and have a look at what's the expected traffic. Can they detect it if they do any sort of web analytics to filter it out? If they were to make any other key decisions. But if they don't allow them, then they should be prepared for losing part of the revenue. So if they can estimate what would that loss in potential traffic be in revenue, and they can weigh those two options up, then they can come to a decision, I would say.
Hmm. It's interesting. So I was when you were talking, I was thinking about one other consequence of the AI. Um, if you block them all together, you won't get any revenue from the AI itself, right?
Mhm.
And the AIs are moving into the shop space, Perplexity heading the pack.
Mhm.
And with the agentic capabilities now, maybe even with the payment service providers, catching up like Visa. Visa has now launched their payment service specifically for agents. They are closer to offering shopping capabilities, end-to-end shopping capabilities from within the browser. And so, what does that mean for organizations, their branding, and their websites? Are they useless? Are they becoming useless
Mm,
now? If you're an e-commerce
very
site
good point.
and you see everything move towards the AI, what's the reason of your website? Is that branding, just pure
Yeah.
branding, or is it something in between? Like we're in a limbo now. So I was wondering how that would play out. So I was kind of interested in hearing your out, Tom.
Yeah, it's almost like a good rhetorical question.
Mm.
It all depends. Like, with the introduction of websites, the high street didn't die out straight away. There's still shops you can go to. Yes, most people shop online on Amazon, but some people do prefer that old school experience. So my best guess in upcoming years, it'll be a mix of both. Some people still like Google going online because it's an experience as well, right? If you give up the experience and you just get the results, some people like that, some people don't.
I would
Yeah.
never think of being called an old school person or like e-commerce being old school. I can still
Mm.
recall, I'm 50, right? So I can still recall the day where we didn't have internet or the dial-up, the screeching modem. And so there was this in-between phase. But that's all gone now, right? So it's been overtaken by Amazon, and still you have the boutique shops. So that's so. But what you're now saying is we're going to be going through the same cycle with an in between, a limbo state before we move to agentic purchasing through whomever the provider is going to be. And do you think that will lead to some kind of war between the AI assistants? Because whomever owns you owns the revenue, owns all your data. That's why I think ChatGPT and all the other ones are investing so much time and money into memory, upgrading memory, right? So what do you think about that in that respect? So, is there a war going on in who's going to be the first to grab you by the yeah, and to keep you there?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping to give some closing remarks, not on the thoughts of war and be grabbed by the, but more on the bright future of agentic web and what that can look like and the possibilities. So yes, there will be some of that. Potentially, I don't know, AI, food delivery people, robots, whatever, fighting each other out, and that kind of stuff. But also the thoughts of like being the system, the web itself being more interconnected, right? In a sense, some things that people waste their time on no longer require that time. But yeah, it's very much open to interpretation. For listeners who might be interested, there's a Microsoft project called WebLM that might be interesting to look into, which is a network of companies and websites who agree to be on this separate network of different websites communicating in an agentic way for anyone interested. But yeah, that'll be my closing remarks, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tom. It's going to be so interesting to see the uptake of AI web agents, I think. I mean, like I said earlier, only 8% of people use it at the moment from the sample that I was talking about. But I think in the next couple of years, from what you guys are saying, it's just going to surge. So thank you so much for all the information that you've given us, Tom. And yeah, thank you so much.